Welcome back to another City Talk podcast episode, Common Sense Politics with Eyes on Orlando. I'm your host, Amanya Salas, and today we have the privilege of sitting down with a remarkable individual who wears many hats. And I do mean that, he wears many hats. Our guest is Chris Kassler. Chris is more than just a community leader. He's a father, a husband, and advocate with a passion for the vision and change for Orlando. Chris's journey reflects the heart and soul of Orlando, and his story is a testament to the power of individuals committed to making a difference in their community. As the founder of Common Sense Florida, he's leading a movement that seeks to retire Buddy Dyer and bring term limits to the forefront of the city's political landscape. With his finger on the pulse of Orlando's challenges and opportunity, Chris Insights promises to shed light on the concerns of the community, the vision for a revitalized city, the steps required to enact and change at the grassroots level. Join us as we delve into the heart of Orlando with Chris Kassler, exploring his personal journey, the mission of the Common Sense Florida, and the vibrant energy that's propelling the call for term limits and new leadership in Orlando. Stay tuned for a conversation that will inspire and empower you to engage with your city's future. Without further ado, let's dive into this enlightening episode of City Talk, Common Sense Politics, Eyes on Orlando, and the conversation is with Chris Kassler. Chris Kassler, welcome to the program. We're so happy that you're here today, and we're excited for this conversation. Come, tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you, Amanya. It's delightful to see you again today. Always enjoy your company, whether it's in person or virtually. And we got to know each other, as you know, last year when we were working on a couple of campaigns together here in Orlando.
Yes.
And we worked on Peter Weed's campaign together. That was the fun one, right? We had that.
Gotta weed it out. We're gonna weed it out.
We had that QR code sticker, and it said "click for weed."
Click for weed.
And I was at the airport one morning at 6:00 waiting to get through TSA, and a guy came up with kind of a hip hop type of guy, and he came right up. And he said, "Oh yeah, click for weed, man. Let me do that." He clicked on it, and it went right to Weed's campaign website. It was rich.
It was a great sticker, great idea. I mean, it could have propelled us to different levels in this whole thing.
Yeah,
Click for weed.
Yeah, I really enjoyed working with you last year. That was so much fun. We worked on Steve Dixon's campaign.
Yes, we did.
He did really well, and a lot of that's because of your hard work. You did a great job with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Got him the exposure he needed, got his volunteers out and on the street doing what they had to do, and that really paid off. He did great. He got 44% in a race against a 24-year incumbent. And, we didn't even have money for a mailing, remember?
So, oh my God, I know. I mean, the incumbent, I think she was there when when everything started. She was in there for so long. She moved from one place to another, but Steve got 44% of the vote. That was incredible work. So, and you should, I was proud of you and your leadership and how we worked on that. And it was good. It's been really good working with you. And now we're facing another project. So it's wonderful.
So I'm delighted to be talking to you about this. And I'm very happy that you're using the term common sense in your title, because that's, of course, the approach that we used for Steve's campaign was that he was the common sense candidate. He was the guy that was going to go to Tallahassee and fight rising taxes and fight the cost of living and do what he could to enhance the lives of the people in his constituency, which was great. I mean, he was basically a conservative, but we never called him, a right-wing conservative. We never addressed it that way. We talked about a guy who concerned about all the people in his constituency, regardless of their politics. And I think it paid off, and I think it makes sense. I think if we're talking about these upcoming campaigns in the county and the city, it's important to have people in there whose concern isn't just for their so-called demographic, but for the welfare of the entire community. And bringing common sense solutions to widely understood and recognized problems. There's a tendency for people to complain about their problems. They whine and they carry on and they grumble, but that's all fine. It helps you identify where the problems are, but you need
Mm-hmm.
somebody that's going to present solutions. And solutions are not just addressing symptoms. That's
Mm-hmm.
not it. You have to
Mm-hmm.
come up with a fresh way of thinking and approaching the problem.
Yes, I agree. And common sense politics, not common sense politics, but common sense Florida sounds like maybe it could be the beginning to the solution of some of these issues that we're seeing. We're seeing so much homelessness here in the city that we're not growing economically. There's so many problems, and so the solutions are, I mean, what is the mayor doing? What is the city councils doing? What are they doing to address these growing problems? Homelessness and, affordable housing, all of these things are issues that we, the people in the city, are facing.
You recall we went to that city council meeting last week,
Yes.
and the mayor was there. He looks like he's running at half speed. The rest of the people on the commission or council um, weren't a whole lot more energetic. But there wasn't any particular effort to address any issues. There was more time spent on giving out awards to people who'd worked for the city for 20 years. And I'm sure they're all good public servants. I think that's great. They need to be
And it's
recognized.
a great, sorry to cut you off, but it's a great voting base,
Well,
the workers.
that's true. That's true. And we're, of course, that's very good. He's addressing that and getting
Hmm.
more votes for himself, which comes up in November on the 7th. But there was no effort to discuss any of these issues, and they're real.
Hmm.
The public safety issue is real, the homelessness issue is real, the cost of living, the difficulty of finding affordable housing. All of these things are day-to-day bread and butter issues that people need to have addressed. And just ignoring them and saying, "Oh well, we can't do anything about that. That's up to the Federal Reserve or whatever the heck it is." That's not an answer. It's totally no. That's not leadership. That's
No,
just
it's
rolling
not.
over.
No, it's not. I was having a conversation earlier with a friend, and we were talking about some of the things that we're seeing here. She's in Georgia. And so we were talking about things that we're seeing in New York City and New Jersey and Baltimore and all of these different states. And the common thing that we see in a lot of these cities is the mayors and the leadership. We're facing the same issues. They're facing it at a higher proportion, but it's growing here in our own community. Um, for example, when we were out not too long ago, when we went to brunch, and we were there and we were walking over homeless people. I mean, they were right there. I mean, it's businesses can't get anything done because people are literally at their front doors.
It's a serious issue, and it hasn't been addressed. It would be less of an issue if there was a sense that something was being to deal with it being done. I made a documentary on the homeless problem in 2019, and I can tell you the problem is far worse today. And honestly, I put that right at the city leadership. There's
Hmm.
no excuse for this. We're
Hmm.
not a poor city. We have plenty of money. We can spend it better than we already do, and we can address some of these problems. I'm not saying it can all be cured overnight, but
Right.
I don't see any effort, and it's very sad. These people are suffering. I don't like stepping over people lying in the gutter, but my God, that's in the United States of America, in Orlando, Florida. Are you kidding? How in the world do we justify that? That's inexcusable.
It's
And
true.
it's sad because these are people that need help. That's the sad part. They're not just trash, they need help.
Yeah,
And they
they
can't
do.
look after themselves.
Yeah. No, they can't. For example, that homeless man we saw at the bus stop.
Hmm,
I mean, that thing was, it's, when I
hmm,
look at that footage, and I did recently, just looking at that again, forgetting that I was there and I witnessed it, but just going and watching that video again, just the footage of him sitting there and in his own feces and his own urine, and
hmm.
his buckets are right there to go and do his business. And then we're right there is the CVS. We're in the middle of a business district, and this man is living in a bus stop. pooping right there in the bus stop, like in buckets. Like, this is America. How does this happen?
Yeah, I agree. Meanwhile, we also let people destroy themselves with addictive drugs. We have a sheriff's department that has decided that they're not going to enforce what they consider insignificant crimes. So if you're smoking weed on the street, they're not going to stop you. I'm
Right.
sorry. I know where that leads. I know it's their civil liberties and their right and this and that and the other thing. But no, it's not their right to destroy themselves, especially when the repercussions are that they affect everybody around them, people in their
That's
immediate
true.
circle, people in their community, whether it's immediately their family or just the businesses that they have to rob from to pay for their habits. None of it's acceptable. And we're not seeing any leadership at the city level or the
No,
county level, if I may put it
no,
that way.
no, you're absolutely right. And people destroying themselves, I mean, I get it. We all have vices. I get it. We're not perfect. I get it. But there's a responsibility there. And I know they blame a lot of it. Oh, it's mental health this, mental health that, people this. I mean, at some point, you got to say enough is enough. When we look at all of these things that's going on, the amount of money money and resources that's put into helping people this way. I mean, it's a lot of money, but yet, for example, I remember we had a conversation with a gentleman not too long ago, and how he's been helping the homeless for so long, for many, many years. He's been helping these same
Yeah,
group of people, and yet these 20 years later, 10 years later, he's still feeding the same people. And I think, my God, well, when does it get better? When do they get better? When do they elevate themselves out of the situation? When does it happen?
I don't have the answer, but I do know that I think that our public servants have failed. Just as an example, using some round numbers on what's going on in the county. City and the county are related, the cities within the county. The county collects a tourist tax.
Mm,
Anybody who comes here as a tourist and rents a hotel room or takes advantage of the other facilities has to pay a tax in addition to sales tax. And the county this last year collected more taxes than ever in its history. I've forgotten, $1.5 billion or some incredible amount of money.
mm-hmm.
Now, it's earmarked to promote more tourism. So basically, you have the convention business and the hotels connected to the convention business. You have the theme parks. So they're all for profit businesses. Okay, so they expect us to spend our tax money promoting tourism, which benefits those businesses. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't make a profit, but I am saying that it's a little bit disingenuous for us to be taxing the tourists and then turning around and spending all the money basically to promote private businesses that are running privately or owned by shareholders. That seems wrong to me, um, especially when there's no effort to address these other problems. Now we've got the county wanting to spend, depending on who you talk to, somewhere between 500 million and $1 billion, probably closer to $1 billion to put up another convention center. Now, even the Orlando Sentinel has admitted that and written a lengthy, detailed article about how the convention center loses money. In spite of that facility and in spite of the traffic that they have, they are unable to make it pay for itself. It loses money. And now they want to build another one. So you got that. Then you've got an effort to put a lid or a roof on the Orange Bowl Stadium, which is probably 50, 60 years old. It's a big stadium. It was renovated not too long ago, but it doesn't have a roof. So they were talking about spending $800 million to put a roof on that stadium.
Oh.
Okay. So now we're talking about enhancing a public venue, for entertainment purposes. Now, I'm not against entertainment, but the city has already spent a huge amount of money on the Amway Center, which is a loser. Okay. Who makes money on that? The people that own the basketball teams. You know what? I would say, arguably, if you want a basketball stadium for your basketball team, go build it. Fine.
Mm-hmm.
Have at it. But I don't want the taxpayers paying for it. I would say most of us never use the facility. Why should we be paying for it? The
Mm,
people that go to the game should pay for it one way or another.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So on top of that, now we have Pat Williams, the famous Pat Williams, a nice man. I know him, interesting fellow, well read, articulate, and famous. Wants $1,700,000. Sorry, that's
A B.
$1,700,000, 700 million. That's such a big number, I can't even say it. To put up a baseball stadium. Now, just an observation. Orlando doesn't even have a baseball team.
Mm-mm.
So the concept is we put up this massive stadium, which will seat 40,000 people, and then we somehow magically acquire a baseball team. Meanwhile, the taxpayers are on the hook for the facility. Think about how
Wow.
much money that is. I mean, these are huge round numbers, but we're talking about a homeless problem here in this town. I would venture that we really don't have more than 20,000 people who are homeless. We might even have half that. But the fact is, it's still a substantial number of people, many of
Right.
them living in either on the street or in dire poverty, many of them suffering from debilitating drug addictions and so forth. I honestly, and I'm not a socialist, but I care about these people. And I think that with those revenues, there's no reason that we aren't finding creative and worthwhile ways to look after them.
Yeah, you're right. Wow. But tell us a little bit, Chris, about the Common Sense Pack and how that came to be and why you feel like this is something that you needed to get involved in and put out there.
Okay, I mentioned earlier that we had worked on Steve Dixon's campaign, and the idea originally in which we applied was that he would be the common sense alternative to sort of the status quo, which in this case was Linda Stewart. And in his case, even though he was running technically as a Republican, we never called him that. We didn't
Right.
avoid it, but we never said, "Hey, here's a Republican, and he's a champion of your gun rights, and he's opposed to all abortion." I mean, we didn't. I mean, those all may be true about Steve, but the fact is, the general electorate was more concerned about the cost of living
Mm-hmm.
and the condition of the schools and the people living in the street. Those are the things that matter to them. So we found a way to address those and have Steve as the advocate for people's concerns in those areas. And those are areas that span the whole spectrum of voters. Everybody cares about the fact that their gasoline is twice what it was 2 years ago. Who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't? I'm paying $3.87 yesterday. It was $1.87 in October of 2020, right? It was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane to think about it. Everybody's affected. So we used the common sense moniker for Steve's campaign, and out of that came the political committee, which is called Common Sense Florida. And the idea here is that we can use this vehicle to educate the electorate, inform them, and we can also reveal the truth about the people running the government or how poorly they're running it when necessary, and advocate for solutions as well as reveal the problems. So that's our goal. It's basically electioneering. It's not the same as campaigning. We're not going to campaign for specific candidates as much as we're going to basically try to control the narrative, literally.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do that with almost no limitation, really, as long as we stay away from getting directly involved in specific campaigns. And we can use our First Amendment rights to express the truth as we perceive it. We'll do our best to be truthful. But for instance, we made a video about the current homeless situation. It's all true. I mean, I've got video of a mother walking her little girl through, having to step off into the gutter, walking down the street, taking her child to school because the homeless are all sprawled all over the place. I mean, that's video. It's true. I shot it right there on Terry Street.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
it's not hard to tell the truth when it's like that. So that's our goal. And hopefully, what we're doing will lead to the election of people who are concerned about our community, do have common sense, and will replace these incumbents who are basically, they're sycophants, to use a word that people avoid usually. It basically means they're yes men. We went to city council. All those people were basically the Dyer, right? The mayor would put up some kind of measure, and then he would say, "All in favor, say aye," and everybody would go aye,
And
and he'd say,
everybody,
"Okay, passed." This is like all
yeah,
in one breath.
yeah.
There was
And
no
every
discussion,
every last one.
never discussion, nothing.
Nobody said anything. Everything that was proposed out there, pass, 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 pass. I think at one point I says, when do people have a conversation about these things? How is it that everything is being passed and that's how they pass things and the public don't even know what the hell happened? All of a sudden, all you know is this has passed. and
Well,
nobody has a clue.
that's true. And it's not reported. We used to have, and I'm not usually an Orlando Weekly reader, but I do
Mm.
read it from time to time. And there used to be a reporter named Billy Maines, who's passed away, and he used to write very critical, insightful reporting on the city council meetings. Who said what and what was discussed? It was very
Oh,
critical and it was very good reporting. We don't have that anymore. Certainly, the Orlando Sentinel is not engaging in it.
oh,
Um, but maybe something like that with your podcast. You're doing that,
oh!
right?
I think you're reading my mind, Christopher.
Yeah. You're doing what Billy Maines used to do. So maybe something you want to consider is going to city council meetings from time to time and reporting on them. In
Yeah,
fact, you can record interviews on the spot, right? You don't have to.
yeah. You watch
So
that
you can
happen,
you can just buttonhole people right there in City Hall, right? I can
like
see it now.
Regina Hill. I
I
can
can
see
see it
that
now.
happening.
I can see that they're like, oh no, here she comes.
Oh
Help!
no, here she comes, the man eater
Woman,
or
help us!
the city council eater.
Help. Well, I think it would be good. I think it would be very, very good public service if you do that. Actually,
You know what? I think that being that this podcast is all about the city and it's all about government as well and the constituents. So, yeah, I think covering city and local things like that, bringing that to the public, I think that's going to be that's going to really engage the audience, I think, and we're going to bring them live footage. We're live in the chamber. Here's Buddy Dyer.
yeah.
People are going to I think that's a great idea to take
And
that to them.
and
Yes.
county commission besides, and maybe even school board meetings from time to time.
Oh
You
God,
let
yeah.
people see. Let people see what's really going on and
Yes.
who these people are that are making decisions that affect their lives and their children's lives. They need to know who these people are and how they think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it's a great idea. Really, really doing the work on the ground
Hmm.
and really showing the public what's going on. And for example, many people don't even know that there's an election coming up in November. A lot of
No,
them don't even know that. No, I haven't seen have I've seen a few signs in the area. Katie Koch, who's running for District 4 commissioner. I've seen her signs around. Patty Sheehan, the incumbent who's been in there for 18 years. I've seen her signs around. But you know, but people aren't really aware of that we have an election coming up, let alone we have a special election coming up as well. So we've got to let people know what is going on in the community.
yes, and part of the thing with common sense is to get people to participate. Now that participation may only just be a vote, but that's a lot. And
Hmm.
for many people, it's more than they've ever done. A lot of people just don't worry about it. They just say, I can't control it. Doesn't make a difference. Don't bother. The other
Hmm.
part, of course, as you just mentioned, we have an election this year. There are people that I talk to regularly that don't even know we have an election. I had a lunch today with a couple of people or a guy that didn't know the election was in November.
Hmm.
Nobody knows. And they don't
Nobody.
even realize it until the morning after when the newspaper says Dyer reelected. You know,
Oh,
they
we
don't.
had an election.
Yeah,
There
oh,
was
yeah.
an election. I didn't know about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's pretty much the case,
It
which
is
I
the
think is
case.
part of the reason they moved it to an off year because there's nothing
Yeah.
else going on. Gets under the radar, so to speak.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was you that made this point or somebody I was speaking with recently made the point that the people that's really putting Dyer back in are really like the city workers because they are aware of what's going on. And it's the same base that comes out and vote every year, well, not every year, but every election and gets him in. I mean, the man is looking for a sixth term. When he gets out, when that sixth term is done, what is that? 26 years? You'll be in 20. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's like Joe Biden going in and spending 100 years. I mean, come on.
We'll get him a gold-plated walker. Um, yeah, it's wrong. It's just wrong. There's no
Yeah.
excuse for this.
No, it's not.
It, you got complacency and you've got all kinds of hidebound this and that. And there's nothing going on that makes any difference. We need somebody to shake it up. And it's going to take somebody who's willing to play hardball. Somebody's willing to stand up and point the finger if necessary and say, look, you guys have been asleep at the switch. Orlando looked very different in 2003 than it does today. And frankly, it looked a lot better. You haven't done much to improve the situation. And go at them for that, because they're planning to slide right back into these jobs without any contest. Dyer got 15,982 votes in the last election. 15,000. That's
15,000. And how many we have? What? In the Orlando, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000,
something like that. I don't know the exact. You mean of voters?
Yeah.
I think it's more like 300. But still, it's
still
crazy.
15,000. That's nothing.
That's 5%.
That's a drop in the bucket.
Right.
I
So
mean,
anybody,
can you imagine kicking it up and getting people aware?
Well, that's what we aim to do in Common Sense. That's exactly what we aim to do. And we do it by offering solutions, revealing the problems and offering solutions. And those solutions need to be championed by candidates. We need somebody to carry the banner, lead the charge. That's what it's going to require.
Before we continue with the program, here is a brief word from our sponsor. City Talk Podcast, Common Sense Politics, Eyes on Orlando. We are so proud to partner with the Orlando Patriot. Orlando Patriot is an online store, patriotic merchandise, everything you need, flags, t-shirts, hats, magnets, and more. They have wonderful patriotic merchandise to support all of your causes where you can show off your patriotic spirit. So Orlando Patriot, they are currently offering 30% off on all merchandise. And the coupon code is City Talk. We are so proud to partner with businesses in the community, such as the Orlando Patriot. If you want to amplify your business voice on our program, please email us at citytalkpolitics@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And for the Orlando Patriot, you can find them at orlandopatriot.com and get yourself 30% off on your purchase. Now, let's dive right back into the conversation. Can you give us an example of, something that can be done? What's part of your plan?
Yes, I'll advocate something that I think can be addressed and can be done very quickly. This approach was used by Police Commissioner Brannon in New York City, and then it was further applied when Mayor Giuliani became the mayor, and they instituted what's been called the broken windows policy of policing, and community awareness, where the broken windows concept is if you have a window and there's say like 8 panes, if one of those panes gets broken, then if you don't repair it, the other 8 panes, other panes are going to get broken too. So you need to keep things in repair to keep your community cleaned up and functioning, and one that you can take some pride in.
Yes.
So one of the things that they did under the Giuliani regime was he said, you're going to clean up these subway cars. Take those cars to the yard, get all that paint off of them inside and out, clean them up, and put them back on the line. And they put them back on the line, and people would paint them again. And they cleaned them up again. And they did it frequently enough that eventually the graffiti stopped. Now, I remember being in New York in the 80s. I'm sure it's worse today, but in the 80s, it was pretty bad. The subways were a wreck, and they were filthy, and they were painted. You may have been there yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one facet, but I think we don't have a subway, so I'm kind of off the track here. But one of the other things that was instituted by Brannon and then followed up by Giuliani was an approach to law enforcement, or public safety, if you will, where the police were told if they break a law, arrest them and book them. And the police would whine and they'd say, well, they're just jumping a turnstile. Giuliani would say, yeah, arrest them and take them to the station house and book them. They're just jaywalking. That's okay. We're not permitting that. It's a law. Enforce it. So that approach worked beautifully. By the end of the 90s, New York City was comparatively a paradise to what it had been.
Right.
I think you may remember. There was a
Mhm.
real urban renaissance in New York City. Crime was down, things were cleaned up, and it was a much better place to live than it had been. This same principle, I was just reading a lengthy article in The Spectator, which is an English magazine, kind of well known. It's the oldest published magazine in England, and they had a story on this exact principle being applied in Birmingham, which
Mm.
is England's second largest city. And Birmingham has had a major crime problem. You may remember that not too many years ago, I think 3 or 4 years ago, somebody set off a bomb in their soccer stadium and killed hundreds of people. It was really
Yes.
things really out of control. And they have instituted this practice, and it's worked. It's worked, and they can quantify it. They can show you that the murder rate has dropped by 90%. So in this city, you and I were both at the Monique Worrell um, town hall. She had been
Yes.
criticized by the governor, so she staged a town hall to show that she was tough on crime and that she had a lot of community support and all that other stuff. Well, you may remember also that at the end of the day, there was a Q&A period with 4 people on a panel. And the guy second from the left was that very nice deputy sheriff,
Mhm.
right? I
Yes,
think
I
he's called
remember.
I think he's the
Mhm.
vice sheriff, actually. Anyway, he made a nice statement. He said, a nice cop. He's like, I've been doing this all my life because I care about my community, and I'm all in favor of peace in the neighborhood and yada yada yada. And he said, but I'm not going to arrest people for smoking weed on the street.
Yep. He said
I'm
it.
I'm going to choose which laws are going to get enforced. And in fact, I'm not going to enforce laws that I consider to be trivial. Well, the consequences, okay, fine. So it's the broken window. So you don't arrest people for smoking weed on the street, even though we have an ordinance against it. Okay, so what else are you not arresting people for?
Yep.
Or worse, what is that guy who's smoking weed on the street going to think? Oh, I got away with that. Maybe I should carry a gun. Or maybe I should do something else that's worse because maybe
Yep.
I won't get picked up for that either.
Mhm.
So what they did in New York was they would have picked that guy up and booked him. They might have released him, but they certainly would have made a point of creating enough trouble in his own life that he'd think twice again before trying to smoke weed on the street.
Yeah.
Um, and so, coming full circle to your question, I would I would want a new mayor to put the chief of police of Orlando or the sheriff in the county, on notice. No,
Yes.
you're going to enforce every law without exception. And yes, I know your officers are going to whine because it's extra work and yada yada. But ultimately, the result will be they'll have less work to do because crime will go down, and public
Exactly.
safety will benefit, and people won't have to pick their way through people sleeping in the gutter when they take their kids to school. Or, as your friend Katie Koch said, that her kids in Delaney Park, which is an upper middle class neighborhood in downtown Orlando, have to step over needles in the gutter
Needles.
walking to school,
Needles.
and they
Yeah.
go to the best school in town.
Mhm. Beautiful area. I was shocked. I couldn't believe that. I think at one point when she made that when she was talking about her speech and she was saying these things and I said, "My God, has she ever stepped foot in Pine Hills?" Because my God, that if you want to see needles, if you want to see trash, if you want to see crime, if you want to see these things, honey, go and step in foot in Pine Hills and see what some real things look like. But I was really shocked that those kinds of things are happening in that community, which tells you any day now if it's not nipped in the bud, um, it's gonna turn into Pine Hills.
Okay, so you've got a lot of experience with campaigning and you know Orlando well.
Mhm.
How would you go about Okay, let's go back one step. Mayor Dyer won his race with 16,000 votes, which we
Yes.
figure is possibly 5% of the electorate.
Mhm.
Drop in the bucket, right? So
Drop in
in
the
order
bucket.
Okay, so in order to defeat him, you have to come up with at least the same number of votes, just a few
Yeah.
more.
Mhm.
Okay. And we assume that many of the votes he gets are from the people who are, doing city or government jobs.
Right.
So how do you, let's say you're managing a campaign, how would you motivate people that are not voters just because they don't bother with it or they don't think it makes a difference? How would you motivate those people in a place like Pine Hills, where I think the voters are either taken for granted or ignored? How would you get them to get out and actually vote for a different candidate?
Well, I would have to say we need to find out what it is that those people want. what are their grievances? What is it? What's their issue? For example, I know for an area in, I don't think it's Pine Hills. I think it's like right next door to Pine Hills, Orlo Vista. And so one of the problems in that community is that they don't have their own police station, I believe. And so um they have, no, it's Metro West. They don't have their own police station, but they're a part of the city. But they have to hire out security to patrol and things like that in their community. So why is it that they're paying into the police or into the city, but yet they are not getting the services? And so some of the constituents and the residents are upset that they cater to the commercial businesses, but not the residential. So I would argue that we would go after those residents and get them fired up and say, hey, this is what, this could change if you got a new person in charge. This is, you're upset about this, but maybe this new person, if you vote this way, maybe these things will change. So we find their grievances, what's really bothering them, what's important to them, and we hone on that, and we knock on doors, and we talk about it, and we beat it up, and we get them out to vote. That's what I would say.
Okay, good. Okay, I agree with you. So, as a campaign professional, how would you get that done?
Okay. Well, we're gonna do the old-fashioned way is always good. So getting that in front of the people, letting them know, well, this is here's the situations, getting it in front of them. And definitely now social media is a huge thing. Video is like major in all of this. And maybe videotaping them and talking about their problems, and then getting that out to more people, and other people connecting to it and saying, hey, I understand that, I get that, yeah, that's your community, well, that's happening in my community too, but we're all in the same place. And somehow we start to connect people with those grievances and start to connect them to say, here's our problems, how can we as a group come together to resolve it with new leadership or new ideas,
Okay.
that way.
Okay. So, practically speaking, let's say we're playing hypothesis, but
Well, it's fun. It's gonna give us ideas
yeah.
for
So let's
2024 is here, man.
yeah,
We
baby.
got work to do.
But let's just use the Pine Hills example and the
Yeah.
mayor of Orlando as a hypothesis. Um, so I remember in 2003, I think it was three, I was home on a Saturday morning. I got a knock on my front door, and it was Mayor Dyer. Or he wasn't mayor yet.
Mm-hmm.
He was there with his campaign manager. It was
Mm-hmm.
all smiles. Hi, I'm Buddy Dyer. I'm running for mayor. I just want your vote. Great to meet you. See you later. I mean, that was practically all there was to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that might have taken him a minute. And they were going door to door, and which I respect. I always have admired that. So
Mm-hmm.
if one were to do that with a campaign manager, a candidate, a campaign manager, and more than just say, "Hi, I'm Buddy Dyer running for office," but "Hi, I'm Buddy Dyer running for office. Tell me, what's your major concern? What matters the most to you?"
Mm-hmm.
And make a record of that. So the campaign manager, in this case, hypothetically, you or the campaign assistant or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
whoever's there, keeps a clipboard and makes a list. These people, and by the time you get done with it, if you work a neighborhood, find out 58% of the neighborhood is concerned about their kids having to step over needles in the street,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever else it happens to be. But that way, you to apply what you're talking about, you get a good sense of what really makes a difference.
Yeah.
And then we can target that. Common sense can use that knowledge to target that community with geofencing. So we can create a message from that candidate or on that issue that's directed into that neighborhood geographically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So only people in that neighborhood are going to see that ad on their Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know we can do that? I think you did.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
that's the kind of thing I want to do with common sense. We find out that 58% of the people in that neighborhood care about X. We want to create a message that addresses X. And we can do it quickly, right? Look how fast we did that thing outside the hotel.
Yeah.
It was a one-day operation, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that may be one way to go about it. But I do think I do agree with you completely. I think the personal appearance approach makes sense.
Yeah.
And people want to feel they're listened to.
Yeah.
You know, one of our candidates last year, whose name we will not use, didn't listen.
Mm.
No, had all the answers, but didn't listen. It's like, wait a minute. People aren't interested in you having answers. They want you to just hear their issues.
Right.
And that's what
Yeah.
it's about. They
Yeah.
didn't expect you to fix it. They expected you to hear them. Then figure it out later, which is fine.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. People really do like the idea of, I remember a few campaigns ago, I was volunteering at the time for a big campaign here in Orange County. And the candidate showed up one day and we were at the door with her, and the people that were, they were mesmerized. Oh, you're the candidate? I mean, they were all over her.
Yeah.
They felt so special.
Yes.
Oh my God, you're the candidate. It's like they're a superstar, rock star or something. And they just thought, oh wow, you took time out of on a Saturday morning to come and talk to me and find out, what my issues are. And I'm sure every time you're going to win that vote. And I try to tell clients, and I says, look, on a Saturday morning, especially in an election time or even prior, I say a Saturday morning, the fruit is ripe for the picking. You knock on those doors, you talk to those people, they're going to be happy and surprised. And guess what? You may not only just get their vote, you might get a volunteer out of that. Hell, you might even get some donations out of that. And again, it's because you're connecting with that person and they're feeling, special, and they're feeling good about this, and they're going to support you if you're able to make that connection. And, I'm telling you, it's old school, but it's connecting with people that makes the
Sure.
difference.
Especially if you're a candidate who is genuine.
Yeah.
It's easy to be a BSer and say, "Oh yeah, I really care about your issues," and then
Yeah.
people, say, "Oh, they get to Tallahassee and forget all about me," which happens, unfortunately.
Yeah. Too funny.
But
Somebody came to mind.
if they're sincere and genuine, then and authentic, shall we say, that goes a long, long way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and the other side of that, speaking as a media guy, is you've seen the footage, you've seen it over and over, baby, politicians kissing babies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you show a politician eating a slice of pizza or kissing a baby with people gathered around. People watching that, even if they're not there in person, will relate to it.
Yeah.
They'll say, "Oh, I could be in that audience. If I had been in that pizzeria, I would have been one of those people."
Yeah.
It's a relatability issue. You don't see people campaigning eating slices of pizza with the Rockefellers, right?
No.
They're down here at Tostino's or what have you, right? With everyday folks.
Yeah.
Because those are the people that have the votes besides. And those are the people whose concerns matter. Those people that are jetting around in private jets, none of this stuff matters to them. They're completely above it. They're not at all affected. They're not even affected by public safety. They've got bodyguards and limousines.
They
right?
do.
Which is part of the reason they're distanced from us and act like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Interesting stuff.
Truly. I have a couple of other people for you to interview. I'll tell you about them offline.
Okay, wonderful.
And I really have appreciated your time this afternoon. I'm sorry I have to skedaddle, but it's almost 4.
Oh no, it's time. It's good. We're right on target.
Okay,
About
good.
45 minutes. That's what I told you, and that's where we're at.
All right.
Chris, I'm so happy that you came on today. Thank you for all of your knowledge and the conversation. It was wonderful. And I know you'll come back on the program as we grow the common sense idea of really connecting with people, the constituents, the community, and opening up their eyes to what's coming in November, this election, and even in 2024. So we've got to, and I love the geo, what did you call it?
Fencing.
geofencing, trying to do that. I think it's great to find out what people need and address that, and get them out there. So
Thank you.
thank you, Chris, for coming on. I
Thank
really
you
do
for
appreciate you.
having me.
Um,
Oh, it's great.
yes, yes. So, folks, anything you'd like to say, Chris? How can people help with the Common Sense Florida? What can we do? What
I
can
will tell you
people do?
directly. Common Sense Florida is a, a powerful but quiet organization. We are interested in creating public opinion that will support the politicians who can change our local political climate for the better. We feel very strongly that Orlando uh, could improve in major ways. It's not evident on the surface, but we are, for example, of the 50 largest cities in the country, we have the lowest median income. That's a shocking fact, but it's a reflection of the fact that we don't have any significant effort devoted to economic development, which is a shame. And that's one thing that I'd like to see change because the condition of the economy affects everyone at all levels. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for bringing common sense to politics through your podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be doing this. I feel like this is really going to be something great, and the interviews that's already been done is really, motivating me, and then the guest lineup that's coming, it's really motivating as well. I'm scheduled with Katie Koch for tomorrow for
Excellent.
an episode, so that's going to be great. I've got other political candidates also lined up, and other community leaders and pastors as well. So it's going to be a great eye opening, and I love the idea of starting to put the eye on the city, and start to go to those commission. You know me, I'll be at that meeting.
Put the
To
eye on
start
it.
that, to keep an eye out, and start to bring that out into the public square. Yeah, I'm excited for that, because that's content just sitting wasting there. That's
Mhm.
just wasted content.
That's
You
it.
know? I
Yeah.
know. So I'm up for the challenge. I'm up for it, and we're going to do some things. We're going to change some things, and hopefully we'll be able to change the landscape in Orlando with this political conversation and the political scene that we have here, and we can really make some change here in reference to the leadership. So, Chris, thank you very much for coming on
You're
again.
very welcome.
And please stay, when you log off, leave your browser on for just a bit so everything could work out smoothly with the
Okay, I'll
transition
hang
of the
loose.
video. Hang
All right.
on when you leave. But
Yeah,
thanks
thanks, Mom.
again, and you have a great rest of your day.
God
And I'll
bless
see
you.
you
Thank
soon.
you.
God bless. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You can go. You can hang out. You can go ahead.
Call me, please.
Okay. Thank
Thank you.
you.
All
All
right, then.
right. Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye.
Bye. Well, folks, that was the one and only Chris Kassler, Common Sense Politics. I want to thank you all for joining the program. It was a great conversation. And listen, we've got a city to save, a country to save, but it really does start in our own neighborhoods. It starts with connecting with your neighbors. It starts with connecting with your friends and letting them know, look, if you're in Orlando, there is an election coming up this November. A lot of people don't know about it. You gotta let people know. And you heard Chris, Buddy Dyer won this election with 15,000 votes. We have hundreds of thousands of people in the city, but it only took him 15,000 votes to win. What does that tell you? That tells you it doesn't really take a lot. If he's really challenged and people are out here really raising hell, a person can really take this thing. off of his hand. But he is a machine, and he has a lot of money behind him, and I understand that a lot of people are gun shy about getting on and taking him on, and even at this late date. And those who are trying, that's on their own side, God bless them, for trying. But it is true that this is an off-year election. A lot of people don't know about it. A lot of people aren't coming out, and it's just what it is. But we need to inform people. We need to inform our friends and neighbors. If you know somebody in Orlando, you have to let them know, hey, this is happening, and they need to get themselves registered and be prepared to vote. So I thank you all for watching and listening to the podcast. We do have a small business area where if you would like to have your business featured on the program, you can call us in and give us that information, and we would be happy to work with you in promoting your business on the program, sponsorships, and so on. You can email us at citytalkpolitics@gmail.com. Again, citytalkpolitics@gmail.com. Check us out on the YouTube page at City Talk Politics on YouTube. We're also at Rumble at City Talk Politics. And of course, you can catch the program on these different platforms. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.